Everybody's got their mic on, or at least turn on when you're ready to speak. Okay, with the time being 1:30 p.m., we'll call the July 8th, 2026 STRGBA GSA meeting to order. We have a quorum. So farthest away from me, I guess, Jennifer, can you confirm that you can hear us? Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. At the end there, we've got Mike Pitcock from City of Waterford. Closest to him, we've got Darren Smallin, City of Riverbank, rather. And then Christy McKinnon from Stanislaus County. To my left, Jesse Franco from MID. To my right, Timothy Barahona from City of Modesto. And I am Eric Thorburn from Oakdale Irrigation District. Jumping right into item number 2, business from the public. Expected outcome. So at this time, interested persons are welcome to introduce any topic within the GSA's jurisdiction. Matters presented under this heading may be discussed, but no action will be taken by the GSA at this meeting. It's not required, but speakers may provide their name and address. Public comments will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. So I will open it up to public comment first here in the room. All right, anybody on the phone? Okay. Seeing none, hearing none, moving on to item number 3, the June 24th, 2026 special STRGBA GSA meeting minutes. Assuming everyone's had an opportunity to review those, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion.
Christy,
Second, Waterford.
is that Mike?
Yeah.
Thanks. Okay, we'll go out to, or actually, I'll start with the committee. Any comments in the minutes? Okay. Go out to the public. Public comment on item number 3, the June 24th meeting minutes. Okay, bring it back to the committee and we will proceed to a vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right. City of Oakdale is here too. Welcome, Brad. Brad Klinkenbeard from City of Oakdale. I used to have it in City of Modesto back in the day. You probably would have recused yourself from the minutes anyway, so you're right on time. Okay. Moving into, we're on to topic number 4. It's the periodic evaluation and 5-year GSP update. It's on land subsidence and groundwater dependent ecosystems. So Liz with Todd Groundwater is going to lead this discussion. It might take me a little bit to set it up.
Okay. Thanks, Eric. Can you see me and hear me clearly?
And are you gonna be able to put the presentation up there?
Yeah, I'll share my screen. Okay, can you see that?
Yeah. Give me a second though. Okay. No, not that. All right, I think we're ready to go, Liz.
Okay, thanks. Well, thanks everyone for having me today. We are, as you know, in the process of developing the GSP periodic evaluation and plan amendment, both of which are due in January of 2027. And there are a couple of topics that we wanted to talk with you about that we have been working on for these documents. The first is the land subsidence sustainable management criteria. And the second is GDE analysis, groundwater dependent ecosystem analysis. So to start with land subsidence. So in April 2026, we had a meeting, consultation meeting with DWR. And the goal of this meeting was to discuss the approach to the land subsidence sustainable management criteria in accordance with their best management practices document that they published earlier this year in January. As a reminder, the chronic lowering of groundwater levels is the proxy for the land subsidence sustainability indicator, which means that the minimum thresholds are the historical low groundwater elevations that were measured between water years 1991 and 2020. So the information that I'm going to discuss with you today is exactly the information that we discussed with DWR. And so we wanted to tell you about our analysis and also tell you about DWR's reaction to our analysis. And one thing I did want to point out is that the current sustainable management criteria, we know that it's protective. We know the historical lows have been protective because no undesirable results have occurred. So what is an undesirable result? Well, according to the GSP, as defined in the GSP, it's significant and unreasonable inelastic land subsidence, which is caused by groundwater extraction and associated water level declines that adversely affects land use or reduces the viability of critical infrastructure. And again, no undesirable results are known to have occurred in this subbasin. But let's take a look at the land subsidence that we know has occurred. So this map on the left is a map of subsidence based on INSAR data, which is provided by DWR. It's a cumulative map from June 2015 to September 2025. So it's cumulative land surface elevation changes that have occurred in the subbasin over this 10-year period. This map and data were presented in the most recent annual report for water year 2025 that we submitted to DWR earlier this year. The gray, the gray color is where we've actually, INSAR is showing ground surface elevation increase over that 10-year period. And sort of the yellows and the oranges are a decrease. And so the areas in the western subbasin and the north of Modesto Reservoir are the areas where we see land surface declines over this 10-year period. And the cumulative vertical ground displacement ranges in these areas from 0.6 to 1.2 inches, with as much as between 1.2 and 1.8 inches. And again, this is over a 10-year period. So this is a very small amount of subsidence that's occurring. But the highest rates of subsidence that we are seeing are occurring in the eastern subbasin in areas that have had water level declines over time. But there is a margin of error associated with this data. So let's take a look at the next slide. So there was a study done that found that the margin of error of INSAR data in California is plus or minus 20 millimeters, which is equivalent to 0.07 feet or 0.8 inches. So if we eliminate all of the measured vertical displacement over this 10-year period that is within the margin of error, what we're left with is an area northeast of Modesto Reservoir with measured subsidence outside of this margin of error. So in this area northeast of the Modesto Reservoir, INSAR data is showing that there's been between 0.8 and 1.2 inches of subsidence, that's the orange color, with a very small area between 1.2 and 1.8 inches, and that's the little brown spot within that orange area. And again, this is over a 10-year period, so not a lot. But the focus of our analysis, in accordance with the BMP, is focused on this area. So we took a look at like I said, the BMP, and we looked at potential approaches for the sustainable management criteria. And one very important term that is defined in the BMP is critical head. This is the groundwater level below which inelastic compaction begins. So there are two types of compaction, inelastic and elastic. Inelastic compaction is permanent. It's not going to rebound. Whereas elastic compaction, you can have a decrease it can have compaction and a decrease in elevation, but then it can rebound, and the land surface elevation can increase again. But the focus here for land subsidence is the inelastic compaction. And so again, the critical head is the groundwater level below which this inelastic compaction begins. And it depends on several different things. It depends on the distribution and properties of clays. It's site-specific, varies by location, varies by depth, and it can be approximated by a representative critical head at monitoring wells where we actually have measured groundwater level data. So what this critical head does is it provides a water level avoidance target. It's for management of the subbasin to avoid subsidence. So let's look at our analysis of the groundwater levels and subsidence. So the map on the left shows the subbasin wells that are in the monitoring network in the Eastern Principal Aquifer for chronic lowering of water levels. And so we wanted to see what measured water level data we had near this area of subsidence outside of the error bar. And so the inset map on the right shows us that there are 3 wells that are nearby, not in the area where we have the measured subsidence outside of the error bar, but close by. And those are the pulse cell 1 and 2 wells and monitoring well MW8, which is a relatively new monitoring well. We don't have monitoring wells in the area in the actual area, those yellow areas and the brown spot, where we have subsidence outside of the error bar. So we added 2 target locations, numbers 4 and 5. And this is so that we could look at the subsidence data in these areas. So bear with me, I've got a few slides coming up which shows both subsidence and groundwater elevations over time. And again, this is all the data that we put together and we discussed with DWR earlier this year. The first chart shows cumulative subsidence over time from 2014 through 2025, and actually 2015 through 2025. And at all 5 of these locations. So the 3 well locations, pulse cell 1, 2, and MW8, as well as the 2 target locations, 4 and 5. The y-axis is subsidence in feet, and you can see the 2 red dashed lines at 0.07 feet and negative 0.07 feet. And what those are the error bars. That's the within those 2 red dashed lines is the uncertainty. So over time, you see that the subsidence rates at these wells and target points follow a consistent pattern. Ground surface elevations decrease between 2015 and 2018, 2019, and then they rebound back up to about 2021, and then they start to decrease again. And by the time you get to 2025, you can see that the black line, which is target number 4, we have cumulative subsidence that is outside of the error bar, and that's why you're seeing it on the map. And you also have it at target number 5, although it's a little bit harder to see because it's barely over that margin of error line. But the takeaway here is that the patterns of subsidence at all 5 of these points are similar, but their magnitudes differ. So let's look at subsidence data and groundwater elevation data at each of these locations. And we'll start with pulse cell 1. So the chart on the left has both groundwater elevation data and subsidence data. The groundwater elevation data is shown in blue, and it shows that a steady groundwater elevation decline over time from 2015 through 2025. The subsidence data shown in the purple line decreases, land surface decreases between 2015 and 2019, and then rebounds, and then decreases again. So we have this consistent decline in groundwater elevations, but we have this kind of rebound in ground surface elevation around 2020 to 2021. And what this suggests is that this is an elastic response. So it's not inelastic, it's elastic. So this suggests that we have not reached our critical head. The story is similar for the other pulse cell well, pulse cell 2. Steady groundwater elevation declines, Multi-year subsidence patterns with a full rebound indicates an elastic response. And the data suggest we have not reached our critical head here. This chart has subsidence data at MW8 and target locations 4 and 5, as well as measured groundwater elevation data from MW8. Remember, we don't have measured groundwater elevation data at 4 and 5 because these are made up targets. But what this shows is, we don't have a lot of groundwater elevation data at this well because it's relatively new. It started collecting data in 2021 after it was constructed. And it shows that between 2023 and 2025, groundwater elevations were pretty stagnant. They're pretty steady. But we see that the subsidence data shows that the ground surface elevations are continuing to decline. So have we reached our critical head here, which would be at about 65 feet, which is the groundwater elevation that it stabilized at? Possibly, maybe higher. So this subsidence data that we're looking at on this chart is based on water year, so October to September. The next slide looks at the subsidence data on a calendar year basis, so January through December. And the difference is at the very end of this chart, where we're seeing in 2025, subsidence is actually, the land surface elevation is actually increasing. And this may be due to the fact that in late last year, November, December, we got a lot of rain, and there could be an elastic response to the ground surface elevation. It could be. I'm not exactly sure why it's doing it, but that's one theory. But the point is that we are seeing ground surface elevations rebound a little bit, even though groundwater elevations are stable. So this suggests that there's an elastic response and that we have not reached our critical head. There are a lot of uncertainties with this data that we looked at. First of all, as you can see, there's not a lot of data. We don't have a lot of measured data in this area. We don't have a lot of subsidence data that's outside of the error bar. There just hasn't been a lot of subsidence occurring, even though this is outside of the error bar. The data frequency does not capture a lot of the higher frequency signals. And when we look at the subsidence data on both calendar year and water year basis, we're seeing slightly different results. So what does this mean? And what did we learn? Well, we learned that there are challenges with determining the critical head. We know that the critical head was not reached at pulsar 1 and pulsar 2. And we think that the critical head at MW8 and the target points might be about 65 feet, but data are limited and suggest there might also be an elastic response. But the important thing is, in this area of the subbasin, projects are underway, and management actions will be implemented to halt groundwater level declines. But we had questions for DWR after we went through this information. We asked them, should we revise the sustainable management criteria for subsidence? Oh, I'm very sorry. Okay. Should we revise the sustainable management criteria? And if so, how should we do it? What would you suggest? Or should we wait until 2032? And what they said was that what we're seeing in the Modesto subbasin, the subsidence is very minor. In fact, they reached out to subbasins throughout the San Joaquin Valley to meet with them and discuss the subsidence issues that have been occurring. They did not reach out to the subbasin and schedule one of those meetings because they do not see the Modesto subbasin as having significant subsidence. So we reached out to them and met with them, which is why we met with them. So they reiterated that subsidence in the subbasin is minor. The current sustainable management criteria that we have is sufficiently protective that there's no need to revise the sustainable management criteria for subsidence at this time. And they suggested continue collecting information and let's reevaluate it in 2032 for the next periodic evaluation. So the conclusion is we're going to keep things the same. The second part of this presentation summarizes our analysis of groundwater dependent ecosystems. So I'll give you a little bit of background. When the 2022 GSP was deemed inadequate by DWR, there were two main corrective actions. One of them was to look at the effects on beneficial uses and users of groundwater from from the minimum threshold to the interim milestone, where the interim milestones were below the minimum thresholds. So in response to that, what we did in the revised GSP was we did a well impacts analysis, a very robust well impacts analysis that looked at the effects on wells from going from the MT to the IM in areas where IM is below the MT. They accepted the analysis, and when they accepted the GSP, they included a recommended corrective action to also look at GDEs. So this recommended corrective action that we are addressing here is to revise the GSP to include a discussion of potential effects from the temporary lowering of groundwater levels below minimum thresholds on the GDEs. So this is a very specific question that's sort of a lead on from what we did in the revised GSP. And we are answering it now, and we'll include that answer in the amended GSP. So a little background, groundwater dependent ecosystems. What's in the GSP? Started out with polygons they're called the NCOG polygons from the Nature Conservancy that had polygons throughout the subbasin. And we determined that in the fall 2015, the potential GDEs, vegetation and wetland GDEs, are along river boundaries and the downstream reach of Dry Creek. And that's what you're seeing on the map on the left. The red and the orange are the wetland and vegetation GDEs, the polygons that are left. These are potential GDEs. We don't know for sure that they all are. This was based on a paper study where we looked at potential GDEs in fall 2015 in areas with depth to water within 30 feet, which is the potential rooting depths. Folks at Mapes Ranch, they hired a biologist, and their property is in the very western part of the subbasin, and they hired a biologist to conduct a field study of these potential GDEs. And a biologist went out into the field and looked at all of the potential GDEs, and were able to determine that some of the potential GDEs were not actually GDEs. So we removed them from this map. So this map that you're looking at is based on the paper study, as well as this field study that was done in the very western subbasin. So what did we do for this analysis? We focused on the representative monitoring wells with 2027 IMs below MTs in the interconnected surface water monitoring network. Why in this network? Because they are along the GDEs that we know, the potential GDEs that we know of are along the rivers. Along the San Joaquin River, there are no representative monitoring wells that have IMs below MTs. Along the Stanislaus River, 3 wells, and Tuolumne River, 2. So we're looking at 5 different wells and the effect of going from the MTs to the IMs. So what we did was we compared the minimum threshold and the 2027 IM elevations to the nearest stream node invert elevation, which is the elevation of the base of the river. We evaluated the groundwater elevation change from the MT to the IM, and we also looked at the distance between the well and the river. And this is a map showing you the wells that we focused on. There are 3 along the Stanislaus and 2 along the Tuolumne. The stream node invert elevations are coming from the model. There are stream nodes spaced about 1/2 mile apart along each of the rivers in the model. And we use the elevation, the stream node invert elevation, the base of the river channel from the model for this analysis. So this table summarizes the numbers, and then I'll take you through sort of what this means. But basically, we looked at each well, and this is similar to the interconnected surface water analysis we did in the revised GSP in response to DWR's question. We looked at the elevation of the minimum threshold, the elevation of the interim milestone. We looked at the elevation of the stream node invert elevation, the distance from the well to the nearest stream node. And this is very important because you can see that these wells are 4 4,000 feet from the river. At the closest one, the furthest one is over 7,000 feet. So they're not right next to the river, but these are the wells that we have. The MTs and the IMs are both above the nearest stream node elevation, or both below the stream node elevation. And so from the ISW analysis that we did in the revised GSP, we noted this, that the MT and IM elevations are both above or below the nearest stream node elevation. And so that it's unlikely that lowering groundwater levels from the MT to the IM will result in groundwater levels declining from above to below the base of the river channel. 2 wells that are more than a mile from the Stanislaus River have MT and IM elevations below the nearest stream node elevation. The change in groundwater elevation from the MT to the IM is 13 or 14 feet at these wells, and we thought it was unlikely to significantly affect groundwater levels near the river. But we also said there's uncertainty. We don't have a lot of data right next to the river, right? This is a data gap that we have. We don't have a ton of data next to the rivers. So we acknowledged that in the revised GSP, and DWR accepted this. So looking at it, these 2 different scenarios in relation to the GDEs, we know the GDEs are right next to the rivers. And so I've got 2 sort of conceptual diagrams that are not to scale. The one on the left is showing wells, these wells that we have that are, between 4,000 and 5,800 feet from the river, that have MT and IM elevations that are both above the stream node invert elevation, which is the base of the river channel. On the right-hand side, we're showing the scenario where both the MT and IM are below the stream node invert elevation, and these wells are between 5,700 feet to 7,200 feet from the river. So these wells are not close to the river. And the blue line is showing the groundwater elevation, the groundwater table. And so conceptually, you can see that from going from the MT to the IM is likely not going to change the elevation at the river, which is where the GDEs are, very significantly. So we don't think that going from the MT to the IM is going to have a significant effect on the GDEs next to the river. So again, our conclusion are that groundwater elevations next to the river where GDEs are present are unlikely to be significantly affected by MT to IM elevation changes at the wells that are thousands of feet from the river. This responds to DWR's corrective action and will be incorporated into the amended GSP. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Thanks, Liz.
Thank you.
Good news, and that's pretty thorough in addressing their concerns, I think. So thank you for that.
Sure.
So I will open it up for questions from the committee. Agency questions?
Have one quick question. I just was looking to see where we were on, where OID was on the pulse cell improvements that you guys were working on.
Mhm.
I was curious if maybe that was what was causing the water increase, and maybe you were already using surface water out there.
There is some use out there. I think you missed the meeting that Emily here with OID presented on it.
Okay,
But yeah, we're done with our construction
perfect.
on that. We have been providing surface water out in that area, and that's going to help significantly.
Yeah, because that's the one area of subsidence. So if we're actually, looks like we're doing work that's going to hopefully make some improvements to that area.
Right. Okay. Any other comments, questions? Okay, we'll open it up to the public. Anyone here in the room? Check and see if that light's on there. There we go. Thank you.
Good evening, Liz. I just want to clarify, when using the INSAR data, talking about land subsidence, when we use the margin of error they suggest, the only management area showing actual subsidence would be non-district lease.
I believe that's right, although we do not have the management areas drawn on that map. I would need to overlay that to tell you that for sure, but I think so. I mean, I believe that's the case, but
Yeah.
Looking
I'm
at
not
it, I'd
100%
say
sure.
probably majority non-district east. It might catch a very, very small corner of Oakdale Irrigation District. Arguably,
Right, and
the only two
right, that's why I'm hesitating.
All right.
Because
I
I
appreciate
think,
the clarification.
Yeah, I can tell it's outside just from the location of the pulse cell
Yeah.
wells. So that's correct.
okay, thanks, Eric.
Yep. Anyone else in the room? Okay, we'll go to the phone. Louis, get your hand up.
Yeah, I was just curious about the Mapes Ranch field study. Who asked for that to be commissioned? Was that the GSA or did Mapes Ranch
No.
do that on their own or?
Yeah, they did that on their own. Yeah, we didn't, the GSA did not ask for that.
Okay, great. And then I'm assuming that's publicly available.
Yes, in fact, it's an appendix to the GSP, that report.
Okay, great. And then I was wondering if the mapping would be updated with the post 2015 imagery or field data, or if the GSP amendment, or before the GSP amendment is submitted, or if you're just going to use the older imagery.
Do you mean for the GDEs? Or
Yes,
for
correct. For
the
the
G-
GPs.
yeah, so the GDE map that I showed you takes into account the biological study that was done by Mapes Ranch. That was done before the GSP was submitted. So that map that I showed you eliminates the potential GDEs that their biologists did not think were GDEs. So that's the latest and greatest map that we have.
Okay, great. Um, I think that's it for now.
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Anyone else on the phone? Okay. Thank you very much, Liz. Nice job.
Thank you.
Wraps up item number 4. So moving on to item number 5. This is the standing item on the agenda, Stanislaus County update on board-directed third-party review of existing studies and action plan development in the non-district east. Christy, you have any update? It's only been a couple weeks, but
I do. So I just would like to report that the department and the county, we are getting closer to finalizing our internal discussions and details of the contract. And we're tentatively going to take the contract to the board for consideration of approval on the 14th. So hopefully after that time, I'll be able to provide additional information regarding the specifics of the contract and the scope of work.
when you all start that effort, the priority is obviously going to be on getting the action plan together rather than the revisiting the model and doing all that stuff, since the action or the GWMP really is starting with demand reduction at such a low amount that the modeling discrepancy is almost certainly going to be less than what we are requiring. The GSA is requiring the reduction in the non-districts to be correct, because you've got a defined timeline then. And with the GWMP, and if we had some discrepancies or any kind of changes we wanted to make, we're planning on bringing that back in plus or minus 5 years from this past January. So you have a lot of time to do that. But really the priority is going to be meeting that deadline of November, right?
Interesting question and good comments, but since we are still having our internal discussions, I'm not going to answer that question at this time. It hasn't been decided. We're still working out those details.
Okay. Well, I'd hope the county prioritizes that. Because obviously there's a really tight timeline of turning that around.
We understand that.
Yeah, just a comment. Okay. Any other comments from the member agency?
I'll say I second that suggestion, since the plan was originally brought and voted on unanimously by the board, so it's
Yeah.
fine, you know, that you're going through your internal evaluation, but at that point, with the prior approval, it makes sense to just wait until the next update to account for those
Yeah.
discrepancies, if there are any significant ones that are noted. That way you hold to the priority timeline of the DWMP.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of work to be done. That's what I'd be concerned of, is just getting distracted and detracting from the effort of meeting that deadline. So, okay, anybody else from the member agencies here? Okay, we'll open it up to the public.
Christy, I understand you guys are still in the detail stage of things, so I'll try to keep questions broad and not specific in any kind of sense. With the concept of bringing in a third party consultant, most likely there is going to be the potential for having differences within the model. Does the county have any kind of stance on how they plan on addressing? Are they going to prioritize one model over the other, or are they going to try to find middle ground between them? Do they have any kind of initial plan if there is discrepancy between the models?
Not at this time. We're focusing on getting that consultant on board to initiate the work.
Gotcha. And then my second question is, does the county feel that bringing on a third-party consultant is beneficial in the idea of time frame? We're already kind of facing a very, very tight timeline. Does the county feel that this third-party consultant may potentially affect the timeline at all for the GSA moving forward?
So the county provided direction to hire a third-party consultant to review the 2 technical studies and to develop the action plan. So it was board direction, condition of approval of approving the groundwater use management program.
Do you think the board feels that this may affect the timeline?
So again, we're still working on finalizing the details of the scope of the proposal and securing the consultant. So we'll be able to provide additional information when that's been completed. We'll take it to the board.
Gotcha. Do you guys have a time frame in place when you guys are gonna release further information?
So once we finalize our internal discussions, and details of the contract, we'll be able to provide additional information to our member agencies and the public.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
John Burkett. As a board, a unified board, I don't understand this, Christie. It seems like San Jose County is going out to do what they want on their section. Does that mean OID, MID, the cities can all do what they want regardless of what this board does as a joint board? How is the study going to affect anything? You can operate individually. Every one of these people can operate individually. I assume you're setting precedent.
Well, what I can say is the groundwater use management plan makes the county responsible as the management area steward to develop an action plan that will outline how we will meet our target reductions and groundwater allocations, and that's what we're doing.
Doing the same for each individual member up here can say the same thing, that they're responsible for OID, he's responsible for MID, they're for the cities. Then they can still do what they feel they need in their jurisdiction, but regardless of what this board unified comes up with, say, they'll manage the plan or not.
Well, as far as I understand, none of the other agencies are required to build an action plan to comply with the groundwater use management program at this time.
Don't know about the future, but today.
And I'm not going to speak for the other member agencies.
I just didn't understand how they're.
Yeah, so they're the only steward.
This board is, and
Yeah,
everybody can do what they want.
Yeah.
But I didn't get.
yeah. So they're the steward, the only steward in the non-district east. So it's solely
Are you
the responsibility of the
steward
county.
of OID?
in the Oakdale management area. We actually have City of Oakdale as well.
Thank you.
Does the action plan about this work to be approved once?
Yes, it does.
Let me say something about the steward, if I may. The steward management job is to manage the rules that the GSA passed 7-0. They're not to go out and challenge what we passed. And that's what it appears to myself and a lot of other people, since I appeared here last time and made some of the comments that I did about reading from the RFP, what your intentions were in that RFP about what the third party was going to do, were very specific. It's essentially challenging the management plan that's been approved by the GSA. Excuse me, GSA member. That's very troubling because it seems like you're hiding behind the excuse of we're the steward. The stewards only enforce the rules that the GSA members pass. Now, if the county didn't like what the consultants and everybody agreed to do, then they should have voted no back in January. But they didn't. They voted yes. And they don't unilaterally have the authority to do something different because they're not the authority. The GSA is the authority. Pursuant to STRGBA, STRGBA says GSA, the GSA is the authority, not the county. The county is only a member of the GSA, just like MID, OID, City of Oakville, Riverbank, they're only members. So if any member doesn't like something that's going on, they have a right to present a resolution to all the rest of the members and see if a majority of them want to go along with it. I think that needs to be clear because somebody seems to be confused, in my opinion, at the county. Now, you referred to a minute ago about 2 technical studies. Which 2 studies are you specifically referring to?
So that's the groundwater use management plan and the EKI technical study that was funded by non-district landowners.
Okay, thank you for specifically pointing those 2 studies out. Okay, let's talk about that for just a second. Okay, the one that was done by the management plan was agreed upon by all the GSA members to hire that consultant for the purpose of to protect, preserve the groundwater, make sure it's sustainable for the future. That's what they were hired for. The EKI study, if you will, was hired by the non-district east for a specific purpose, to attack the management plan that we all agreed upon. So let me point something out to you. So if you see the problem with that?
Oh God. Oh, sorry. I guess I'm not muted.
So you see the problem with that? That you're taking one study or presentation that was presented to the GSA during the public comment of developing the management plan, and they decide to pluck one, because there's multiple studies, there was multiple reports, there was multiple public comments that people provided throughout the whole process. You know, I mean, it was very, the way that we did it, it was very generous how long we left the public comment open. Wouldn't you say, Eric? Like a sequel, you got what, 45 days?
Yeah.
This was open for what, over a year? Was it not?
We took a while to do it. I don't know exactly how long it was, but there was significant public input.
So then there was what? There was, I don't know how many different public comments and reports and documents and everything was submitted, but there was dozens, right?
There were several, yes.
Okay, and now, and they were, a lot of them were done by professional people, not just individuals. They were done by professional people. Now the county decided on their own to pluck that one out and say, oh, now we're going to go hire a third party and spend more taxpayers' money. What gave them that? What gave them that permission? Who gave them that permission to pluck that one out? They should have plucked it out before we closed public comment, before we voted on this 7-0 to approve the management plan. Now, let me point out one other thing. In this little folder here that I have is a report that the county did. They hired a third party, Jacobson Engineering. And it was presented to the public on June 26, 2018. Taxpayers' money at the rate of over $500,000 was spent on that. And what is in this report? In this report, it shows that the non-district east is not sustainable. they do not have enough water to be sustainable. They're destroying the aquifer, they're destroying the environment. And you know who's paying for that? Not the non-district east, the rest of the taxpayers in this county. So all you guys that are on this board, when you think about your mayors, your directors, that are all elected, we have a responsibility to protect our ratepayers. And the county is wasting money trying to protect a small group of people that their own report that they've already spent over $500,000 on back in 2018 shows it's not sustainable over there. It's destroying the environment, including the aquifer. Walt Ward said it perfect when he presented this to the board in 2018. He said, this is not the GSA's work, but it gets them going in the right direction. Now, what are they? Are they going to hire a third party to go back and try to prove this report wrong?
Thanks. Any other public comment in the room? Okay, go to the phones. Louis, you got your hand up?
Hey, sorry about that. I thought I was muted. Anyway, but moving on. Hey, I just want to thank the county for doing a wonderful job being our steward in non-district east. I'm also a Oakdale management area grower, as you guys all know. But I just think that as honest, reasonable, worried people, we're all worried about the aquifer, right? We need to take into account that Dom from Woodard and Curran did state previously that there were data gaps in the GWUMP, one being the Dry Creek stream. So I just think it's a good thing that we're taking a look at this, and hopefully we can address some of these data gaps that were mentioned by STRGBA's consultants. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yeah, I think Dom also stated the magnitude of those data gaps was insignificant compared to the difference between what the ultimate demand reduction proposed in the groundwater management plan was versus what the first stage increment was. So it is important to always get better. The data is going to continue to get better. So always looking to improve.
Well,
Thanks for the comment.
everything helps, when you're facing demand management. I think we can both agree on that, Eric.
I didn't quite catch that. What was that?
I said everything helps when you're facing demand
Absolutely.
management. So I think we can both
Absolutely.
agree on that. So even though 5% or 10% of the demand management, which was that missing 5,000 acre feet, that's a lot to people in non-district east. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think the final cutback off the top of my head was something around 60,000 acre feet. And so the first reduction is 16. So there's a big difference there. But yeah, I agree. We need to get as accurate as we can, and we're going to base it off field measurement data. So we're all on the same page as far as moving together and moving forward and not creating impacts, but reaching sustainability. Thank you for the comment. Anyone else?
Just a quick question, Chris. You said that's going to your board on the 14th, next Tuesday?
We are hoping that we'll be able to keep it on the agenda for next Tuesday, the 14th.
Thank you.
It's a lot of moving parts. So
Yep.
that's our target. We're doing what we can to make that happen.
Thank you. One last shot. Okay. Thank you very much. Item number 6. Next meeting. So our next regularly scheduled meeting is on August 12th. It's at 1:30 on Zoom and also offered here in person at Oakdale Irrigation District. Comments, questions on the next meeting date from the committee?
August 12th.
August 12th. Yep. Yeah. Did I misspeak? Oh, okay.
Prime time.
All right, no comments, questions, the next meeting from the public, okay. Item number 7, committee reports, comments? All right, we will adjourn the meeting at 2:20. Thank you very much for everybody attending. See you next.